I'm with Kaery Concealed and the Active Self-Protection Extra channel. And thanks for coming back and joining us. We have part two of our interview with Mr. Mike Williver, our F cubed. You get that right, Mr. Mike? Good. And we're going to talk about OC spray and how effective is it? And we'll do that when we come back.
Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense.
All right. Well, thanks for coming back. I was talking with Mr. Mike before we started the interview, and one of the things I mentioned that I wanted to ask him about is, as a OC spray defensive tactics instructor, I'll let you share about that a little bit. But one of the things I've been researching, I have a dear friend who, this man has everything, and he has shared with me all of the OC student level courses and instructor level courses that have been taught in in law enforcement circles for the past 30 or 40 years. And one number that comes up frequently in those is an 85 to 90% effectiveness claim. And other DT instructors are the ones that are usually quoted saying that. So ask you a little bit about your experience as an OC spray instructor. What do you think of that effectiveness? Because you're delivering OC in a specific, perfect training environment. So I would think its likelihood of working would be a little better than on the street, but I'm gonna let you go with it.
Yeah, so let's dispel a couple of myths right off the bat. Number one is the myth that if someone eats a lot of spicy food, Thai food, whatever, you pick your spicy food, and they eat a lot of peppers or they put a lot of Tabasco on their food or whatever, that they'll be less effective on them. That I'm 100% sure is not true. Those people generally speaking, don't pour Tabasco sauce into their eye and shove it up their nose, right? It goes in your mouth and on food, and you control the amount that you're putting on your food. So you get used to it after a while. And as an old guy, by the way, I'm using a lot more hot sauce than I used to. I can't taste anything anymore. God, getting old sucks. Anyway, I think I will not cast any aspersions on anyone who manufactures OC spray. I have no idea where they get the number from, but like you, I've never seen the research to back that number up. Now, maybe someone has it. I have no clue. And if they have it, please leave us a comment, leave us a link to it. That would be fantastic. It'd be a great tool to have. All I can tell you is I instructed and taught and exposed to OC. I wish I'd have kept better records, between 300 and 500 probably agents. So it's a decent pool of people. And it should be noted that probably over half of them, because I was immigration HSI in San Diego at the time. And so easily half our agents, probably more than that, were native Spanish speakers. They were Hispanic origin. A lot of them ate a lot of spicy food, and that made zero difference in how they responded to the OC exposure. And I think maybe, look, no one is not affected. So let's dispel that myth as well. No one has zero effect or zero response to the OC spray. It's just how much are they affected by it. Yeah. And I would, in my experience of the people that I exposed, I feel comfortable saying 97, 98% of these people were affected enough that as a law enforcement officer, or in some people's cases as a private defender, I could move in and arrest them confidently. Or if I was a private citizen and I'm like, I got to get out of here, I could beat feet. There's no way they're going to be able to follow me or give me any more problems in the moment. There were some people who could fight through it better than others. That's how I would phrase it. So you had people who were like, darn it, that really hurts, but they could still keep their eyes open. They could still be a threat to you. But that was a really vanishingly small number of people that were exposed. And these are all agents. So, they're a little tougher than the average bear, or they want to show how tough they are by not making a dramatic scene of it. I was a total, absolute 2-year-old girl every time. I was running around, give me the fan. But it really is a matter of how much does it affect the person being sprayed. I'm claiming that as my own original thought. Not is it effective or ineffective. There's a whole spectrum. And on that spectrum, there's people, like I said, who who are just like, that really stings, it sucks, but they could fight through it and they could continue to be a threat to someone or continue to resist arrest or whatever the scenario is you're in. Most people are, I would say, 80% or better disabled. Like they're not effective
Okay.
after being exposed. They can't fight very well. They can't see where they're going. They're too distracted by the pain. And frequently, as we said on the last one of these, when I got exposed, every time, and it didn't get any better, maybe got a little worse every time, my eyes would involuntarily slam shut. I mean, like I can't even recreate how closed my eyes were, and I would have to force my eyes open to see anything, to get water in them, or in front of the fan to recover. I'd have to hold my eyes open, like one of those old cartoons, and the wolf has the toothpick inside of his eyelids, holding it open. That's how it felt,
Yes.
and it sucked. So I would say it is remarkably effective. I would feel confident telling anyone, as long as you have a quality product, right? And we promote Palm because
Mhm.
we know Palm works. We know 100% that it works.
Yeah.
We've all either been exposed to it, or a lot of us at the company have either used it or talked to someone who has used it. Firsthand encounters with people. We've got people on the podcast who have used Palm, at least two, maybe more. It's been several hundred episodes. I lose track now. And those people all reported exactly the same results. It shut the person down immediately. They were unable to continue their attack. They were unable to continue doing whatever they were doing. And I know I'm talking really fast, but I'm from the East Coast, so that's not going to change.
Doesn't
That's
bother
the end
me a
of that
bit.
answer.
You're doing awesome.
Right. Cool.
One of the things I learned from Ross Hick is that
Good people.
birds don't not the birds, not the band the birds, just birds in general. So we have Canadian geese where I live, and or Canada geese, whatever you want to call them. And I likened them to flying dogs because they leave poo poo everywhere.
And they're like
disgusting.
violent ducks. They're awful.
Yeah.
They're mean and nasty. Yeah.
They're so cute, but they get so grumpy sometimes, which is understandable. We have them in our
Right.
yard all the time. But anyway, Mr. Ross was explaining that birds don't have the TP1, whatever pain receptor that is required to respond to capsaicin. So you cannot use OC spray on attacking geese. Last, in part one, we talked about you can use it on dogs and it's very effective. And even a bunch of the mail carriers that we have around here carry it. They're issued it by
They're issued it. Yeah.
wherever they're working. Yeah, and they use it and they have found it to be very effective. Tell me a little bit about some of your suggestions and strategies for if someone were to have to deploy OC. My son, I asked my son, okay, I'll say it this way. I asked my son, hey, if you could stand in front of anybody, if you could ask any question of someone who had a lot of experience with OC spray, what questions would you ask them? And his question was, which I thought was a good one, is there any obvious line in the sand between when, all right, if this is going on, OC is not an option. And I have to go straight to my firearm. Obviously, proximity, I would think, would have something to do with that. Or if a guy is really angry and has no visible firearm, you've had him lift his shirt so you can check his waistband. He's got nothing in his hands, but he's angry and animated and upset, but he's not coming towards you. Would you try OC first? What recommendations, not that we're giving legal advice or tactical advice, but in your work that you did, what is there a specific line in the sand? I guess I'll start with that question.
The answer for me is absolutely not. There's no line in the sand. And I don't, there's a lot of places where I love having a bright line for things. This isn't one of them because it will depend immensely on who is the person deploying the spray. So me deploying spray versus Kaery Dudenhofer deploying spray are two vastly different things. They're just very different. The odds of someone coming at me in an aggressive way are less potentially than you because they see you as, they don't know you, they don't know better, but they might see you as less threatening, catcher or female. So who you are makes a difference. I think Kaery or someone of her stature and size would be more justified sooner in deploying it because you can't afford to let that guy get too close to you. If he gets on top of you, now you've got a problem, especially if it's your standalone self-defense item, if you don't have a gun. But I think what comes into play here is what John says, and I can't remember if Chuck Haggard said it or someone else, but pepper spray it's the step between, it's the go between a harsh word and a gun. And that's a great way to put it because it is a lower level of force than a gun. And I would encourage people that if you genuinely feel threatened in a situation, get out of it. If you can't get out of it, if the person, try to walk away from whatever it is, see if you can do it safely. If that person is now following you or they're trying to block your egress, that's knock yourself out as far as I'm concerned. That's tantamount to kidnapping. If they're blocking your egress from anywhere in public or preventing your false imprisonment, it's preventing you from your freedom of movement. That person, I think, deserves a snoot full of pepper spray. Now, Kaery said at the top, and it's important to remember this: none of this is legal advice. This doesn't mean that your local detective, police officer, or prosecutor will feel this way about it. You may end up having some court costs. You may end up having some legal problems. But the question you have to ask yourself is, do I feel sufficiently threatened that this is justifiable? And if I is the potential harm from this person outweigh any potential civil penalty or a couple of days in jail that I might maybe have to deal with down the road? And that's a conversation just like the one we talk about, having that conversation with yourself before you carry a gun. Can I pull the trigger if I have to? Is that something I'm capable, and something you should recheck on from time to time? I've discovered recently. If you're a single female and you never had kids and you're great with carrying a gun, you might have a kid and that might change a little bit. You might be like, well, this changes my perspective. So if the danger that you're sensing outweighs any concern you have for potential, ramifications, then I think that's the time. There's no bright line because every situation is a little bit different. And I'll tell you why I say that. When I started working with John on the badge cams, I'm like, how are we going to keep this interesting for more than 4 episodes? Because all the answers are, and I was 100% wrong. I'm like, oh, okay. I hadn't watched a lot of badge cams independently, except for a little bit in training. And I didn't realize every situation is a little bit different. The culture is different. The training of the officers is different. The geography is different. And all that stuff affects the outcome of a critical incident. So no, there's no bright line for me with pepper spray. But I would say don't wait. If you genuinely feel threatened, and even if the person's not coming at you, first step, leave if you can, right? Just get out of there if you can. If they'll let you leave, leave. If you can't leave, or if you're trying to leave and they are blocking your egress or they're holding you there or whatever, even if they're just standing and if they move to stand in your way, it's time to go. We need to use the pepper spray and get ourselves out of that situation. But I really think most times it's not going to be a huge debate in someone's mind. I think most people are going to be able to sense the danger, sense that an attack is imminent or whatever, and use it. Look, Ben on the podcast, you can go watch the video too on the main channel. I can't remember when it came out, sometime in late March, I think. But he wasn't being assaulted when that thing happened. No one was assaulting him. This guy was in the store and everybody was saying you need to leave, and he was verbally accosting and or threatening the clerk behind the counter, and he'd been told several times to leave, and Ben's like, yeah, you know what, this guy's probably about to punch someone in the face. And so we gave him a little douse and the guy left, and the police came and said, not to worry, you're not in any trouble. We'd already dealt with this guy. We saw the videotape. We think what you did was completely justifiable. And that, I think sometimes I create too much doubt in people's minds when I say you never know what a prosecutor or a police officer is going to do. But listen, the vast majority of the time in a situation like Ben's or like the one we're describing where you're just trying to leave a place and the person will let you go, or you're being verbally assaulted and threatened, the vast majority of cops are not going to look at that askance. They're going to go, yeah, I think I would have done the same thing. So I think that's something we have to bear in mind, not to get too in our heads about it. Otherwise, we'll have that analysis of paralysis and not be able to press this, you know what I mean, and use it when we need to use it. Here's the bottom line. If you misuse pepper spray, unless something cataclysmic terrible happens, like the guy wanders in front of a truck, and gets killed or maimed or injured, the legal ramifications are relatively minor, especially when compared to deploying a firearm. So if it's something you can do and avoid using a gun, wow, that's fantastic. Because now you're not dealing with the trauma and PTSD of a shooting. You're not dealing with the potential legal ramifications of was I justified or not. And, in the immediate aftermath, you're always going to ask yourself that question. And you're not dealing with a dead body. So I think it's a win all the way around. As long as what you're doing meets the general requirements of what the situation demands. That's just my 2 cents.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's helpful stuff. I love some of the terminology that you use there. When you talked about, if somebody's following or somebody's blocking your egress, that's tantamount to kidnapping or false imprisonment because they won't allow you to leave. And it's a good way to think about it. I was just preparing for a writing. I have 3 active expert witness cases going on right now. I've never had that happen before. So I'm not talking specifically about those cases, but I will say that in other cases, in cases with friends that I have that do the same work, one of the things that has, since I've been doing expert witness cases for a couple years now, that has caused me to change what I teach is I strongly encourage my in my permit classes. I say, I think it's almost asking for trouble if you put on your gun for the day and you don't put OC spray on. So I ask them, please put
or
OC in your
something.
pocket first. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
something in your pocket because, and for a lot of people, OC is such a easy, viable option because it's not going to hurt or kill anyone. Um, One of the things I wanted to ask on the video the other day, you talked about in the early days of OC, people thought that, oh, OC causes people to die. But the truth is,
Yeah.
I'll let you
So
share it.
I mean, look, I don't know. There may be an isolated case here or there of someone with some kind of condition, and simply being pepper sprayed ended up with them having some unfortunate outcome. But I've never heard of it ever once.
Yeah,
What did used to happen before we realized that it was a problem and amended training is if somebody was particularly combative with law enforcement and had been pepper sprayed, and then post arrest they're still thrashing around, they're breaking out police car windows or they're kicking officers, they would restrain them. They call it hog tie. There's another more PC way to describe it, but it's basically hog tying. It's putting someone prone, handcuffing them, and then connecting their ankles and wrists with some sort of rope or cord or something. The idea being now they're completely unable to hurt anybody unless you put your hand in front of
yeah,
their mouth and let them bite you. They can't kick you, they can't punch you, they can't break things, they can't kick out windows. And so what would happen in some cases is, and I don't know why certain people had this happen and others didn't. I don't know if it was maybe they were heavier, and so like I'm
yeah,
heavier and I have sleep apnea. Part of that's because I'm fat, and so your epiglottis can. So I don't know if that was anything they discovered was contributing to it, but they called it positional asphyxia, and basically someone with whatever other prerequisites they had who was hogtied and pepper sprayed would suffocate in the back of a police car. And it was just horrific. And they finally caught enough of these, and I think probably the FBI caught wind of enough of these to go, okay, we need to look into this. And the training bulletins came out. And so the idea was, if you can do one or the other. You can use pepper spray or you can hog tie somebody. You can't do both because of this potential risk for death or serious injury. Even just a few minutes of deprivation of oxygen to the brain could be a real problem. So that went on. I heard about a few of those, and then it quickly disappeared, as far as I know, for that
yeah.
reason, because we got wind that, hey, this is a bad thing. Don't do this.
And a lot of people thought that it was asthma related. Oh, if you have asthma, you can't OC spray. Or people would say, I have asthma, I can't be exposed. But the truth is, the capsaicin, odorizing capsaicin, is a bronchodilator. And so you'll breathe
Oh, is
better and
it?
your sinuses
Is
will
it?
be
Is it
more
ever?
clear than ever.
Yes, it dilated my nostrils to about this big as the hose of mucus. Just, oh God, I hate even thinking about it. Honestly, I'm not sure why I agreed to do
The
this interview.
snot rockets. I
Yeah.
I've read a bunch of studies through while developing so it's been about a year since I read the studies on the deaths with OC spray as a factor, and weight had a lot to do with it, but also the general health of the person did as well.
Mhm.
So those other, I don't know if they're called comorbidity factors or whatever, but
Yeah, but that's true
COPD
about
or
anything from,
emphysema. Exactly,
yeah,
and that's what the
COVID
study said.
to trauma to a gunshot to anything else. If I you know
Yeah.
if I get COVID and you get COVID, odds are you'll probably fare better because you're not a big giant bald fat guy. So you got that
Well,
going for you.
they also, speaking of studies, there's also a study I found where they use different decontamination. That makes it sound so scary. I'm going to try to change that, Mr. Rank. I don't
Yeah.
think we should call it decontamination. I think we should just call it cleanup. So cleanup
Yeah.
procedures. They tried like Malox, milk, um, old water, and I can't remember one other one. But the study, I mean, it was a study done at an academy, and they found that the best thing was cool running water. And that makes complete sense because that's what we hear people say all the time.
Now this may have changed, so you can tell me. Because when we were doing this is late '90s, early 2000s for the bulk of the training that we did, because we didn't have anything, and then we had to train the whole office, our whole SAC office. So that was when I did most of this, and we didn't do a lot of reapplication. So anyone new coming in would have had it done at the academy. So it was kind of a concentrated period. So have they? Because when I was doing it, it was pretty well understood that cool running water feels great. and it immediately sort of eases the pain and symptoms of the exposure. But that only running air, only when, like for example, a fan or something, is the way to hold your eyes open and get that. Is that still true?
So here, I just did, I won't say what company because anyway, but I just did an LEOC course with a company. And that was one of the biggest changes I noted from the other OC training I've had is they talked about that they were advising against air alone. Now it's different. So cool breeze, fine, but mechanically, like so big fans and that sort of thing.
Right.
And the reason is because and they went into all the medical parts of it, but the OC itself actually dries out mucous membranes around the eyes after a certain point. And so it can cause you to create, like Mr. Sandman Bermuda Dream, where you get those cruddy chunks in your eyes. Those chunks in the corner of your eyes.
I don't get those. Of course.
Those chunks are actually more prevalent after OC exposure. And so it's because you have foreign body in your eyes, right? So your eyes are producing that mucus to try to get the stuff out of there and tearing and that sort of thing. So the fan can then, or an extreme amount of air can cause that to dry up a little bit. And if the person rubs their eye, it can actually cause an abrasion, whether it's a corneal abrasion or just an abrasion of the soft tissues on the outside of the eye, which can then lead to infection. So this company had changed their long-standing policy from about 30 years. Now, all the DT guys were defensive tactics instructors were like, we ain't taking our fans away from the guys. There's no way they'd have a fit. So do with it as you will. But I just thought it was interesting. And they had some information from an ophthalmologist that they quoted as well. But yes, cool running water. And I know air feels, personally, that's what felt the best for me. So I'm with you there.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time. Do you have anything else you'd like to add about OC and OC use?
About OC, not particularly. Just get a good brand. We recommend Palm, and we know for 100% that Palm works as well or better than any other thing on the market because we've seen it firsthand. And I would say if you're gonna carry a gun, carry OC spray. Maybe some other option, but OC is just, in my opinion, is the best option as that go between a harsh word and a gun. And you'll just like carrying medical is important. The odds of you needing medical and deploying medical in the field are 1,000 times more likely than you actually firing a gun at somebody else. Same thing with OC spray. There's a bunch of situations that don't require a gun that would require that, or that would be helpful. So carry your OC spray, get some Palm. It's not that expensive, by the way.
That's very true. Very true. They have inert units. Palm just launched their new glove for running. So it slides on your hand. It doesn't have a hinky little elastic strap like some of them do that knocks loose over time and gets stretched out. This is an actual the finger parts of the glove that slide over your hand. So, even if you're grabbing something or whatever, it'll stay on your hand, which is pretty impressive. And they just released that here recently.
So if you got funny with me, I could give you a punch in the nose and then spray you with the same hand.
You could. You sure could.
Like it. All right, well, when we get
stuff.
to the conference, if you see me walking towards you with some funny gloves on, you know to run.
All right. Thanks for your time today, Mr. Mike.
My pleasure.